Welcome back to the Stick 'em Up podcast. Brundi, we got a lot of really exciting series going on in the playoffs right now. Um, I think at the start here we're going to start with a couple other things because we actually do have a little bit of other hockey news to talk about for the first time in a little bit. But we will be talking a lot about the playoffs as well in this episode, right?
Yeah. We obviously got some massive playoff talk here. A couple other news. Kind of within the NHL, not necessarily playoff talk, and then even some international hockey play. But to just start off here, we do just want to say that our thoughts and prayers do go out to the family of longtime TSN broadcaster Daren Dutchyshen, who unfortunately did pass away today at the age of 57 years old. He had been battling, I believe it was prostate cancer for the last little bit, and unfortunately, his battle did end today. Just one of the most iconic, personalities in the game when it came to broadcasting. If you watched TSN at any point, you knew who he was. If you were someone who kind of grew up like us, where we don't have the technology back then that we did today, so it was like, as big hockey fans, it's the next morning you want to find out how the games went. It's either you get the newspaper and you look up the scores and the standings, whatnot on that, or you watch, you turn on TSN and you watch the broadcast and the highlights and whatnot, which obviously usually featured Daren on there. So again, our thoughts and prayers go out to his family and friends, as it's just a huge loss for for the entire, not only hockey world, but just the sports world in general.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, greatly put. I mean, I know a lot of people who, you know, he was a part of their morning routine, like you said. You go and you
Yeah.
watch in the morning, and I know a lot of people, as kids, I know I definitely did. Was they would like to watch the game because, of course, a lot of the times the games would go late enough that you couldn't stay up to watch the end of the games, and so you would go and you would watch the highlights, and you would try and judge like by how they're talking about the game because they like talk over the replays, right, and the highlights, and you try
Yeah.
and judge on how they're talking on who you thought would win and what you thought the score might be. And that
Yeah.
was always a good time, and he was very good at what he did. So yeah, thoughts and prayers to him and his family. Yeah, the hockey world's gonna miss him.
Yeah. 100%. Like, it's um again, just you can exemplify just what a massive loss this is, and for one to just kind of come out of nowhere. And it's in moments like these when you try and find like the little things about it, to kind of make it whole. And actually, this just recently happened not too long ago because the game just ended. Um, but obviously, we are from Canada, so any of our Canadian listeners have probably at least heard of the show Corner Gas, which actually did feature Daren on there multiple times. And one of the times he did talk about the Vancouver Canucks, who ended up pulling off a comeback tonight and winning in the dying seconds of the game, which again is kind of one of the things he talked about, a big moment in the dying seconds of the game. So it's just kind of one of those things that kind of came full circle there, and kind of you know kind of felt like his presence was there throughout the entire hockey world tonight in some way.
Yeah, yeah, you could feel it on the broadcast there for sure.
Yeah. But with that, we will move on here, as we do got some other news, again, both like kind of in the NHL, not revolving around the playoffs, and then also just international hockey news.
Yeah.
Where do we want to start here
Um, I
with what
figure
we got?
we'll flip over to the international stage for a bit, and talk for a
Okay.
little bit about Austria. Austria's team has been on a tear lately, and I just really want to give them their flowers. For those of you who don't know, but can probably imagine, Austria is not exactly a dominant hockey force in the traditionally in the international sphere. Um, but earlier today, they Austria won 3-2 over Finland, marking the first time Austria has ever beaten Finland in the tournament. They won. It was a 2-2 game, and they scored with 0.2 seconds left. And the crowd went ballistic. The commentators were losing their minds. It was a very good watch.
And they didn't
Um,
even know it was a for sure goal. Like
yeah,
they
they
were
had to
losing their
review it.
minds regardless. It had to be reviewed, and then upon review, the official had to then go to center ice and make the big announcement that it is a goal, like right when the game's ending. So then the building erupts, like the Austria bench erupts because they now know that, like, you know, with the 0.2 seconds, they for sure
That's
won
a
the
win,
game, and
right?
the roof just blew off the place. It was a really cool moment to see, and just huge for the entire country of Austria, where their hockey program has just it's one of those countries again that we've kind of seen it with Slovakia a little bit and some others where it's like it's just slowly building more and more, um, over the years, and just becoming a bigger and better program, and they're producing really good talent out of there now.
Yeah, and it's evident because this isn't the first time, even this week, that they've been making headlines. This is the
Yeah,
same team that just a couple days earlier um, made a massive comeback against Canada of all countries, forcing OT after being down 6-1. John Tavares, of course, ended up scoring in overtime, so Canada did win the game 7-6. But Canada is one of, if not the biggest favorite of this tournament every year.
yeah,
At minimum, in their worst years when their team looks weakest, at minimum, they're a second or third best team. Like,
yeah.
they're always a juggernaut. So for Austria, you know, people expected the game to be something like 6-1. So for them to come back, score 5 unanswered goals, and force it to overtime
Not only
was,
that, 5 unanswered goals in the third period,
yeah,
and
like that was
shutting out
massive for
Canada
them.
from getting any. Like they won the third period 5-0. Um, which is just like that's just absolutely absurd. Like you even look at the World Juniors when it's Canada going up against these other teams and whatnot, and it's like Canada whoops them. And the fact of, like, I know Austria's a little bit better in these tournaments, but Canada's also way, way better. And the fact that they were able to, win the third period 5-0 when you're down 5 goals, um, absolutely just incredible. And it's
Yeah.
just a true testament as to how much, again, this program there and the country as a whole in the hockey market just continues to grow and grow.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's just wanted to make sure they got their flowers because after both of those massive wins over teams, Finland also that they beat tonight, absolutely no slouch in the hockey department. Like they're competing with the big boys now. Like whether it's
Yeah.
just the programs are getting that much better or this team just really freaking wants it, they look good out there and at times very dominant.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, they're definitely sending a message to the rest of the hockey world and letting them know that they're on the rise. And if you even give them an inch, that this team's going to take a mile with it. And they showed it against not only Canada, but then against Finland, which again is just absolutely incredible for them and truly impressive.
Yeah. Um I guess we'll talk about the Chicago Blackhawks next, 'cause I feel like we could talk about Marchand's quotes when we talk about the playoffs. Um, but the a former consultant to the Chicago Blackhawks is suing team chairman and CEO Danny Wirtz and its charitable foundation for fraud, breach of oral contract, and sexual harassment. The harassment was from a third party employee that was being hired by the Blackhawks to help with work with the charity. She reported the sexual harassment at the time to the Blackhawks, and a large part of her case is that the Blackhawks organization did not handle her complaint correctly at the time. So she's not suing them directly for it because it was not one of their employees, but it was kind of like one of their you know, one of their people that they had hired um, to come in and do
Hmm.
some work. Um, committed that, so it's uh, it's interesting to see some of the people's responses to it because it wasn't part of the Blackhawks org, but also this is definitely not the first time the Blackhawks organization has not properly handled a sexual assault or sexual harassment complaint. So
Hmm.
very much not a good look on the Blackhawks. Hard to tell if this one will go anywhere. If I'm being honest, something about it reads to me like they're removed enough from it that it's probably going to get settled out of court pretty easily. But
Yeah, I mean,
we'll
you,
keep
you
an
kind
eye
of
on
got to
it.
imagine, considering again, a lot of the people they had in certain places on that team are no longer there now. And this again stems back to the former incident they had. Obviously, not gonna dive into that well again, but yeah, like you said, I mean, it's not the first time we've heard of something like this out of the Blackhawks organization. But again, like you said, I got to imagine it does get settled out of court just because, again, it comes like a big part of it is, the people that were in place at the time and did not handle it properly are no longer in those positions. So,
Yeah. And that is
yeah,
on the onus of the owner,
yeah,
to know what's going on. You know, to use a bit of an analogy, if a I don't know if it's even a great analogy, but like if a waiter, you know, pinches a customer's butt, does the restaurant owner have some responsibility for hiring them? It's hard to say for some people, but yeah, I definitely think it'll whether or not the charges get dropped or it gets settled with a settlement to her out of court. There's no way the Blackhawks allow this to go to court. They're
hmm
trying to bring up Bedard. They're trying to, they're trying everything they can to get rid of all the stigma with that old guard, the ones that are gone. And
yeah,
so they're
yeah.
even if they have to pay way more than they would want, I think they will just to keep themselves out of the headlines as much as they can.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, 100%. Um, Something on the topic, kind of including Chicago, that I actually found out the other day that I actually didn't know, and I thought this was quite interesting. So when we were kind of doing our whole build up to the draft lottery and whatnot, and finding out the order, we were talking about how Chicago, um, they won the lottery last year. They moved up from 3-1 to get the first overall pick, so they could only win one more time within a 5 year span.
Yeah.
I actually found out the other day now that that doesn't actually apply this year to San Jose because they were the
Hmm.
worst team in the league and they just retained the first overall pick. So
So
they're
they
actually
didn't win the lottery.
exactly, which I didn't know that. I thought
Oh.
it was just basically it was just a fancy way of saying you can only have the first overall pick um 2 times in 5 years. But like if San Jose finishes, say, third
Fair.
next year, they could win the lottery, move up to first, and then they finish ninth or something the next year, they could technically still move up to first. It's only if you actually um, win, like you the ball is
You move
falling in your
up.
favor, and you
Yeah.
move up exactly. So, just a
That's
little fun
interesting.
fact there for anybody who maybe didn't know that because I only just found that out the other day. So, which was um, some
Yeah.
interesting news to hear there.
It's something that you like to imagine won't ever come up. It's not going to be an issue, but at the same time,
Hmm
Edmonton got what did they get? 4 first overall picks in like 7 years or something like that. Like it was a lot. So, who
Yeah.
knows? Maybe we'll see something like that again, but
I think it was
hope
4 and 6 actually,
yeah.
which is just absurd.
Could you
And
imagine
we
if
we will,
if that was pushed a year later and two of
yeah,
those guys were McDavid and Matthews
yeah. Well, and
and
we
they'd
will
still have
we will
Drysdale?
get to the Oilers and where they're at in a little bit here. But I
Oh yeah.
think we do have just a little bit more. You had something you wanted to talk about before some playoff talk here.
Um, well, that was pretty much all the non-playoff stuff. This one's fairly playoff related. We can talk about
Actually, I guess, yeah,
the
yeah.
Bruins and the Panthers here, but mainly I just wanted to key in on Marchand's quotes. He's had a couple really good quotes in the past few days, talking in the media. Um, he was saying that he thinks that Sam Bennett got away with a pretty good shot. Obviously referring to the sucker punch that knocked Marchand out of games 4 and 5.
And it
We're
sounds
not
like
sure.
6 as
It
well.
it sounds like he's doubtful for 6. Maybe he plays. We'll see.
I think if it goes 7, I think he'll for sure
Yeah.
play, because it's Marchand,
Yeah.
He will.
I don't imagine he's choosing to sit these games.
Oh yeah, no.
I imagine he's being held out.
Yeah.
But he had a couple other quotes that really was lighting the internet on fire a little bit. One right here is people don't want to say it, but part of playoffs is trying to hurt every player on the other team. And the more guys you take out, the more advantage your team has. Which we all, as viewers and hockey fans, we know this. And I think a lot of the players know it, but nobody's ever said really out loud. Nobody actively currently playing in the league has ever really come out and said as much.
Yeah.
Because nobody wants to be like, I'm going out there to injure guys, because that makes you look like a piece of shit, and makes you look like you're breaking the rules.
Yeah, exactly. If you're a Vancouver fan, you're not going to sit there and be like, I hope McDavid gets injured. But if you see him go down with an injury, you're not going to be sitting there being like, oh fuck, that's brutal. You're sitting there like holy shit. Again, like Marchand says, it gives your team an advantage. Same with the Oilers. You don't want to be out there and be like, oh, I hope Quinn Hughes gets injured. But every time you see him get rocked and take a bump, you're sitting there like, I mean, if he's injured, that's not the worst thing for us. So he's just saying what people don't want to say.
Exactly. Like I don't want to see players get injured and have their quality of life go down or have their career derailed. I don't want to see any of that. But when I'm watching Tampa in the playoffs against Florida, I'm like, and I see Sam Bennett go down, I'm thinking, I hope he is out for the next 2 weeks. Just enough time for this playoff series to be over. I want him to be injured for that long, and that's good. And that's what you want for all the best guys on the other team, just because you want your team to win. You don't wish ill on them. And I feel like whether it's said or unsaid, I feel like the vast majority of hockey fans have felt this at one point or another.
Yeah.
You're hoping that if you're playing the Leafs, you're hoping Austin Matthews has diarrhea that night,
Well, maybe he did. Maybe
just missed.
We don't fully know. He very well might have.
So, it's very interesting to hear it said out loud, and you kind of wonder if the league's gonna make any comments on that, or if anybody else is gonna make any comments on it.
Yeah. Exactly right.
But aside from that, do you have any thoughts on the Bruins-Panthers series? It is now 3-2 for Florida, so it is now going to a game 6. This is longer than I thought the series would go, honestly.
So actually, before we go into playoffs, I do have some other playoff talk. It just doesn't. It's not NHL related. It is the CHL. Okay. So again, that's the WHL, OHL, QMJHL. I think they go by a different name now. I think it's like the LMJHL or something. So we talked about it last episode. We're coming back to this one. We have history, as this is the first time ever that both the WHL finals, the OHL finals, and the QMJHL finals have all ended in a sweep. We saw Drummondville sweep, we saw the London Knights sweep, and last night we saw the Moose Jaw Warriors sweep, which again makes it just that much more exciting going into the Memorial Cup tournament, being like, you've got the host, and obviously they're get there and just because they're the host, but at the deadline they still make some pretty big moves, because they're like, hey, even if we go out round one of the playoffs, we're still in the Memorial Cup final. And then you've got all of these 3 teams that have just now swept their matchups to be the best team in their own respective league. Makes it that much more exciting, and going into it knowing that we're going to get just kind of some clash of the Titans and teams that are on some really hot streaks right now.
Yeah, and that's always very exciting watching 2 teams face each other that just both came off of sweeps, because one of these teams is going to lose, and neither are used to losing. So it's always really fun to watch that kind of clash of Titans, as it were.
Yeah, exactly. And then just again, before the playoff talk, we do have 2 NHL regular season awards that have been handed out.
Yeah, right.
The first one being the Bill Masterton Trophy, which is that one is kind of like the perseverance and dedication to hockey and kind of coming back from something. And that ended up going to Connor Ingram of the Arizona Coyotes. Um, I don't, I'm not totally familiar with what his story was. Um,
I can
for
I can bring
for
it up
why
here if
he
you want to talk
was
about the other
nominated
one.
and ended up winning it. But nonetheless, huge congratulations to Connor Ingram. Anytime he could win that award is obviously a very big moment for not only you and your family, as it comes down to perseverance and dedication and love to the game. And again, one of those weird awards that we've talked about before, that it's kind of weird that you're comparing players' stories and, in some cases tragedies and whatnot, and being like, well, this guy's is worse. It's one of those words that I feel like should just be, you know, every team, nominates a guy and they can, kind of all share collectively together. But it's
Yeah,
just one of those weird ones where, again, comparing stuff like that just feels very weird to me. The
yeah,
other award being the Mark Messier Leadership Award. Did you hear who won this?
I did, and this was actually one of my guesses to win it. That didn't make me a ton less surprised, but yeah, it was Jacob Trouba, the captain of
Jacob
the
Trouba.
New York
Yep.
Rangers.
And do you know how this award is
Oh
given?
boy, do I! Because how can you not know how the dumbest fucking awarded trophy goes out?
Yeah. For
It is
those who
the
don't know, it's Mark Messier picks it by himself. And
Yeah,
obviously he picks the captain of the New York Rangers, who he led to a Stanley Cup. So again, I mean, I don't hate Trouba as a pick, but it's like you look around the league and it's like not only is there so many better options, but again, you're picking a guy who, again, Rangers fans will say, no, he doesn't. He just plays hard. He goes out there sometimes looking to hurt and impose a lot of harm upon other players. And,
so that probably
I
helped him get the
just
pick,
don't,
though. It's
I don't think that, I think it just comes down to Messi picked it because, hey, I like the Rangers. I'm going to pick their captain because they're doing really good this year.
I think both can be true. I think I don't think Panarin would have got it if he was named captain. I think he wanted to give it to the captain, but he was like, okay, Truba's led them this year. He's been a good leader, and also he plays the style that I like. Because like Mark Messier is an absolute legend of hockey,
Yeah,
but he
100%.
he played like an asshole. Like we talk about guys like Tom Wilson, like he's a piece of shit. I think it's fairly safe to say Mark Messier was worse than that. As were a lot of guys who played back in that time, but
I don't know if he could be worse than Tom Wilson.
I definitely think
Like Tom
he was
Wilson's pretty
up
fucking
there.
bad.
Like
He's
he's not
pretty
Matt
bad.
Cook. He's not the worst of the worst by
Yeah,
any
Mac
means, but
Cook gets to teach junior hockey players now, so
guys
wait
back
wait till
then,
a couple years. We're gonna see the league really in the full Rempy effect.
yeah.
But yeah, nonetheless, I mean, again, congratulations to Jacob Trouba. I mean, for what it's worth, I think it's definitely the award that means by far the least because
If nothing else,
it's
just because
strictly
it's a
picked by
dude picking
one guy.
and a guy who, is linked to the world, but he's not a scout. He's not at every game. He's not I can't
In the
imagine he's
locker room.
watching a ton of them. He's not in the locker room. Like
Yeah.
he's picking based off of vibes a lot of the time, it feels like. So
Yeah. And it's easy when you're sitting there and you're like, hey, I played for the Rangers. Trouba's the captain. Oh, they won the President's Trophy. There we go. Like
yeah.
it doesn't get that much easier for him to want to, pick from the Rangers when, in my opinion, I think there was, and no disrespect to Trouba. I do think he is a phenomenal leader for that team. But again, I think based off this season, I think there were so many other guys that you could have picked that would have made a way better winner for this award. So.
Yeah. And just going back to Connor Ingram and the Masterton Trophy.
Yes,
Uh,
yeah, yeah.
Connor Ingram was he stepped away from hockey in 2021 to treat a previously undiagnosed OCD disorder and depression as well, entering the NHLPA, the Player Assistance Program. Um, he returned for the 21-22 season when he made his NHL debut with Nashville. And then he went to Arizona, and he's actually put up really good numbers in Arizona. He had a 907
Yeah.
save percentage this year. The Coyotes weren't exactly good, and the league save percentage average was either 900 or I think 901. So for him to have a 907 on that team was very solid.
Yeah, he was a huge part of. I mean, the team obviously didn't have
Yeah, while
much
playing 50
success, but
games, like he wasn't a
yeah,
backup.
yeah, he took the majority, especially after last year. Vejmelka kind of came out of nowhere. It's like, oh, this is their starter, this is their goalie, and
Yeah,
then
I'm
Ingram
huge on
comes in,
Vamilka, and Ingram kind
and
of swept in and took the starter position.
yeah, and like it's like again, the Coyotes didn't have a lot of success this season, but the success they did have was in large part due to the play of Ingram, who again, like you mentioned, was above the you know average save percentage for goalie this season, and the Coyotes still finished the sixth worst team in the league. So to put up numbers like that, it really shows that he was doing everything he could to keep this team afloat. And I think it's probably safe to assume that I mean now we know they're going to Utah, but Utah's kind of looking. They're like, hey, we've got our goalie at least that we can run with for the first couple years of our franchise because Ingram's proved he can be a starter in this league and play good hockey on a consistent basis as a goalie.
Yeah, absolutely. And just a quick shout out as well to the other two finalists for the Masterton Trophy. Carolina goaltender Freddie Anderson and Flames defenseman Oliver Shillington were the other two.
I mean, obviously, we are in the air, so we hear about it a lot, but I really did think Shillington was kind of going to,
Yeah,
win it based off, uh, you know, just kind of his story. But I guess
yeah,
maybe part of it is maybe just because we don't fully know his full story. Um, and I think in order for
yeah,
him, if he won it, it would kind of be like you kind of have to maybe probably tell your story. Because I think there'd be lots of questions because people would want to know, you know, what his journey was to get to the point of winning this. So,
yeah.
um, but I mean,
Um,
nonetheless, it's again one of those weird awards where it's just weird to compare that kind of
it's
stuff.
weird to compare. Like Anderson missed most of the season this year due to blood clots, and Shillington has been away from the team for over a year and a half, dealing with mental health issues before returning. So, like, it feels weird to compare those things. But
Yeah,
congrats to all three for the nominations anyway. And yeah, I personally thought Shillington would win almost only because I was actually at the Flames home game when he returned, and I just remember how much people were cheering for him and how happy people were to see him back, and you know, just being there in person gave me those colored glasses and gave me a little bit of bias there, just because that was a really cool firsthand.
exactly right. Like he's obviously a very well liked player within the Flames organization and the fans. So, um, yeah. But I
But
mean, congrats to all three finalists. Are all very deserving. It is they all share the award together.
yeah, I'm sure it's fun. It's cool to be nominated either way, like just to be
Yeah,
recognized.
yeah,
Uh,
exactly right.
but moving on to the NHL playoffs. Do we want to start with the Bruins Panthers?
Yeah, yeah, we can start with them. I think we only had what one game
Yes, I
since
believe.
our last episode
Yeah,
here, and
because
that
last time we were
was
talking about Marchand probably missing Game 5, which he did.
yeah, yeah, that's
Might
right.
miss Game 7. That's honestly seems like a 50-50 to me. I really don't
Mhm.
know, but
Yeah,
the
but we
Bruins
do
are
know
back
that
in the
the
series. Jeremy will not be denied.
yeah,
This dude should get paid on his next contract. I
and
know a lot of teams
he's
don't
gonna
like paying goalies. You're gonna have to pay this goalie.
yeah,
Woe is
hundred
you. You
percent.
got one of the best goalies in the league, and you're gonna have to pay him like it.
It happens to every other team that's got a top notch goalie, and whether Sorrow stays with Nashville or where he goes somewhere, that team's gonna run into the same thing where they're gonna have to pay him. But I mean, Bruins 2-1 victory in Game 5 here. Morgan Geekie getting the scoring going early in the first. Sam Reinhart tying it up about 6 minutes into the second, and then about 4 minutes later, McAvoy scoring the eventual game winner, and there was nothing after that, and it was just a very, very even, hard nosed, just gritty game, and it could have gone either way, and it went in the Bruins' way, and I think that's awesome for them. I think they really needed it, and I mean, I think they still lose. Don't get me wrong. Like the Bruins are still cooked, but they get to hang on at least another day, and
I don't know,
they
man.
can
Once you push it to a
they can
game
at least get one
six,
more home game.
I think
Nah,
it's
there's no
anybody's
way.
series.
There's no way Florida drops 3 games in a row.
They only have to drop 2 in a row now.
Yeah, no, I still think Florida takes Game 6. As much as I kind of
It's
like to see
much
the
more
Bruins
likely that
win.
Florida wins, but doors open.
Yeah, like it's not saying Florida, like Boston has 0% chance of winning. I'm saying like I would bet a large amount that Florida would that is going to win this series. As much as I would like Boston to win, um, especially with Marchand out, and even if he does come back, he won't be 100%. Won't be actually, he probably will still be himself and with his antics and whatnot. But I still think Florida does come out on top in this one.
Yeah. We'll finish out the East. The only series that's done at this point.
Finally,
I thought we would have way more series that are finished at
are
this
you crying
point.
now, Hurricanes fans? Because your
But
players were. You lost.
but the
You choked
Rangers
tonight.
won the series 4-2.
Off the back of what a massive leader Jacob Trouba is, huh? Huge leader.
Huge.
But no, really, like it was Carolina's game. I think they really kind of played a really strong, solid game, first and second period. Um, huge goal line saves by Martinook, some really huge goals by guys like Aho and Jarvis. Everything looked Carolina's way. So I actually watched the first and second period, and then I had to go because I got invited to go to this hockey event tonight. Had no idea what it was. It ended up being an event hosted around the Sutter brothers. So I got to meet 5 of the Sutter brothers tonight. But they did have the game on there, so I was kind of able to keep tabs on it. But I was watching with my buddy, and the Rangers scored the first one, and I was like, all right, they've got a chance. They score another one, and then I was like, all right, like Rangers are winning now. Like if they're going bang bang in the third period, they've got momentum, and when the Rangers have momentum, it's done. And then sure enough, later on, boom, Rangers have the lead, and then close it off with an empty netter, and that was it. Rangers are
Massive
moving
hat trick
on.
from Chris Kreider as well. Dude has
He tied a
shown up.
record tonight. He is only the 3rd player in New York Rangers history to have 3 goals in a single period in a playoff game. I bet you can guess who the other 2 are that he's joining in that record with.
Well, I'm going to assume Mark Messier is one of them at least.
He is one of them. And then the other
is this
ones
somebody I can reasonably guess?
Oh, easily.
Wayne Gretzky.
Easily. Yeah, Wayne Gretzky.
Okay.
Which pretty impressive to be in the Rangers record book beside guys like that.
That's pretty elite company.
And not only that, to do it in a game where you knock off a great Hurricanes team who was the winners of the trade deadline. I think we're the hottest team basically since the trade deadline going into the playoffs. To have a huge and not only that in the third period, to do that and knock them out, just really caps off like what an incredible game for Chris Kreider. He actually, when he was leaving the ice after celebrating with his teammates, there was a young Hurricanes fan there as he was going off the ice, and he actually gave his stick to a young Hurricanes fan there, which I thought was extra classy of him, especially in you're in Carolina's barn, you whoop them in the third period like that. That's a really important game stick, and you hand it off to a young Hurricanes fan. Extra incredible there.
Yeah, And it was a kid and his mom, and the kid and the mom happy. You could see a little bit
Yeah.
of like, you could see a tiny bit of it in the mom of like, I wish
Fuck
this
you,
was a
Crider.
hurricane stick, but
You
like,
suck.
but
Yeah.
like, she was still very appreciative, and
Oh, you gotta be.
that
100%. Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think Crider realized, hey, I just absolutely ruined this kid's night here. So the least I can do is give him a stick here and make things at least a little bit right.
was that was good. He'll win
But yeah, I
the
mean,
Mark Messier award next year.
next year, yeah. But yeah, I mean, huge game for the Rangers. Hurricanes again. I mean, they didn't get swept this year. Um, they did manage to at least make it a respectable series. I'm very interested to see where this team goes because, again, we've talked about Brendamore's contracts up. They have a lot of big name players whose contracts are up, and they're probably going to lose two of them. Given the contracts they have coming up in the following years. So I'm very curious to see what this team does. And, I really felt like, that they really were all in and had to go for it because they're like, not like their windows up, but it was like I don't think they're going to have a team, you know, with this core as good as they had this year.
Yeah, and they really don't have any glaring holes in their lineup right now, so it's very tough to go out like this in the second round because
Yeah.
they've got good goaltending. They've got three respectable goaltenders. They've got great scoring guys up front. They got good forward depth. Their defense has been fantastic for years.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, it's like we said, it was one
I
of
don't
those
know
things
what you
where,
do as a GM to build a better team.
well, and that's even what we said, right? Like when Rangers were up 3-0, we said Carolina could have easily been up 3-0 in this series. And
Yeah.
they either would have swept, they would have won 5 or 6. Like they would have won the series regardless. So it's one of those things where it's like it was just such a really close, hard series, and it just sneaked in the Rangers' direction a little bit, and they were able to capitalize on it. Like there's really wasn't much more Carolina could have done or added or anything to make their team better. The only thing you could say is maybe the injury to Brett Pesce kind of hindered him a bit, but I even thought D'Angelo coming in played just fine, and Carolina fans love him and had no complaints about him being in the lineup. So I don't think that can even be an excuse for them.
The Hurricanes are starting to look like I'm sorry, but this is the only team that comes to mind. A bit
Yeah,
of a San
yeah, I'd say
Jose.
it. Yeah.
I can't think of another team that went through a similar thing, but one of
No,
those
I
teams
mean,
that,
I agree.
or you know
I'm
what,
with you.
mid 2000s Senators actually as well. You know,
No,
they're
the Sharks analogy
good,
is it sucks, but it is the perfect one.
very good, consistent success in the regular season. They always make the playoffs. They can get past the first round, but they could just never quite break through. And who knows, maybe
And
next year they'll win the cup. But
and even when they do make the Eastern Conference final, like San Jose did with the Western Conference final, they got slapped. Like it's yeah. I mean, it sucks to say, but you are right. Like it is the perfect analogy. Like they are what the San Jose Sharks were from like 2010 to you know 2000 and actually probably even before 2000. It was just long, painful years, and Hurricanes fans are now
2008
understand
to
what that's like.
2018.
See, I wanted to say 2018, but I was like, they did make the Cup final in 2016. So, I mean, they did come up short, but like they did get over that hump finally. We haven't seen Carolina get over that hump.
Yeah.
Maybe next year. I think if, uh, you know, the things can kind of go their way in the offseason and they can keep the guys that matter the most and, maybe be like, hey, we gotta spend a little extra money to make sure we keep the important guys in place and not let them go just because we don't want to pay them that much. I think they got to pay their guys, especially Gensel and Pesci. I think is the two you gotta lock down.
Yeah. Yeah. Hopefully they can, for their sake, they can keep Gensel because he is a gamer for sure. He is fantastic. And
I think he at least goes to free agency. just to see what's out there.
Yeah, you
I think
got to
he's
see what's
willing to
out there.
risk. I think he's willing to risk that
Well, why
8-year
wouldn't
deal
he? He is
with the
going
Canes to go and
to
see what's out
get
there.
his money regardless. See
Yeah.
what's out there.
Yeah, exactly right. And if the Canes lose him, and then I guess it also means that Pittsburgh doesn't get a first round pick in the Gensel deal, which makes that deal look even worse for them now.
We'll move over to
Just
the
brutal.
West here. Let's talk about the Stars and the Avalanche.
Yeah, I think again, we've only had one game since the last episode. Colorado did win it.
Yeah,
I
so
mean,
we don't have to talk too long about them, but
yeah,
I am surprised that the Avs won and handily won Game 5 to push this to go to a Game 6.
See, I'm
With
not.
Nichush, like Dallas just looked like they were firing on all cylinders, and with Nichushkin out, just dropping 5-2 on them, like dominant win.
So I think I was a bit wrong with that initial report on Nichushkin. So last game, like game 4, it does actually sound like Colorado did their whole morning process and whatnot. The players went home and they had their nap, they ate whatnot. It wasn't actually until they came back to the arena that they found out about it. So they actually did only find out about 2 to 2.5 hours before the game. So it actually probably did affect them a lot more than people thought, because when you find that out just before a playoff game, obviously can really affect you. I mean, I wanted Dallas to win Game 5, but I wasn't surprised Colorado won, because Dallas went games like 2, 3, and 4 with kind of shutting down, not entirely, but really kind of suppressing, Colorado's big dogs in McKinnon, Rantanen, and Makar. And it was just one of those games where I felt like there's just no way they can shut them down for 4 games in a row. It was like they're due to have one game where they go nuts and put the team on their back, which they kind of did. And I'm not worried about it for Dallas, but
I wasn't exactly worried at the win necessarily as much as it was a dominant win. They kind of made the Stars look like chumps out there, and I don't think Dallas is going to let that happen 2 games in a row. But there should be a little bit of panic in the Stars in Game 6. There should be a sense of urgency to close it out now.
I don't think so, because again, it's Dallas has been in, like, Dallas already went through the ringer in round 1. And the fact they were able to rewrite that story and come out on top, I don't think anything phases them as much anymore, because they're like, hey, we just went down 2-0 against the defending Cup champs.
I think it should. I think
we
think
that's
foolhardy. I feel like that's how you lose games, by not having
going in with confidence. Going in with confidence, being like, we're the better team, we can do this. No, I think they're fine.
You can't.
If you're coming in gripping your sticks extra tight and nervous,
you can't be lackadaisical with your confidence.
No, they're not going to be lazy. But if you go in gripping your stick extra tight and worried about making a mistake,
no, I'm not saying nervous. I'm just saying play with the urgency. Know the stakes of the game.
100%. They don't want to go to another Game 7. Yeah, they made their mistake in Vegas, losing Game 6 and having to go through that scary game. Game 7, like they're in this now going into Colorado. They're like, we're not losing this one. Like we're winning this one. We're getting a little bit of a rest finally, because they've played every second day since the playoffs have started. So they're ready to get at least 2 days in a row of rest or something.
Yeah.
So I'm not worried about it for Dallas. I think if they lose this game, maybe a little bit, but again, I think they've already been through it with Vegas, and I think they know what's at stake, and they're going to make sure it doesn't happen to them again.
Yeah. And then that just leaves the Canucks Oilers, and what a series this has been.
So this is the only series this is the only one that we've had 2 games since our last one. So we have games 4 and 5 to talk about here, which both kind of ended in similar fashion.
Yeah,
and the same score, I'm pretty sure. No, both 3-2.
Yeah, I was gonna say I wasn't sure about the Game 4, but I know Game 5 was 3-2. Carson Soucy, of course, in that Game 4, serving his 1-game suspension for the cross check to McDavid, and then scoring a goal for the Canucks tonight in Game 5. Big return.
Who did he score on? Who's in net for Edmonton now, by the way?
I actually did not see. I can check that right now. But
no, it's the same. It's the same as Game 4.
Oh, was it? It wasn't Skinner, was it? It was
it was
the other goalie,
Calvin Pickard. He started both games 4 and 5, and you know what? Didn't hurt the team. Did not hurt them.
Goaltending isn't exactly
whatsoever.
No, he's got a 909. Oh, that's the regular season.
Oh, is it? Oh. But he's got to be around there still in the playoffs, I think.
And why the hell is this not showing me playoff stats?
So he would have a 909 in the playoffs right now. He had a 905 in Game 4 and a 914 tonight for Game 5. So definitely did not hurt the Canucks or the Oilers whatsoever. Was actually looking
Miller with a massive
really good
goal at the end of the game.
Yeah, and one of those ones again that's left. And that's not a goal on Calvin Pickard. I mean, he played great in Game 4. I mean, blanked the Canucks in periods 1 and 2. Canucks managed to sneak 2 by him, and then Bouchard obviously seals the game with 30 seconds left or whatever to win that one. So Pickard, he played huge. He did what he had to do for them.
Yeah, and I mean that JT Miller goal is not on him. He tried his best to make that save, but not only is it a weird bounce, but why is JT Miller of all people wide open in front of the net like that?
Even I would say the second goal is not his fault. I mean, I don't know what Bouchard's doing, but if you're a defenseman, you got it behind your net, you got pressure, you don't cut right around the net and go right in front of your goalie. Like, he gets pickpocketed, quick turnover, and it's in the back of the net just like that. So it's, I don't blame Calvin Pickard one bit for Edmonton's loss tonight, especially considering Edmonton went 0 for 5 on the power play, a power play that's been absolutely dominant. So there we go. That's kind of going back a bit to what we were saying before when Draisaitl was making those comments about Seeloffs and what does he do tonight. He absolutely shut the door on the power play and wasn't giving Edmonton much to work with there. So the kid kind of clapping back a bit in his own way there, proving that he can handle it.
Yeah, it's wild. And you were talking about the power play, so I do just want to mention the horrendous call on Elias Pettersson. They called him for charging, of all things. But the puck rings around the boards. Pettersson picks it up. He's looking towards center ice, and a guy was coming to check him while he was still had his shoulders facing him. Now the guy's looking at his numbers. The guy's just going to kind of run into him, not like lay a check, but just kind of run into him from behind, it looked like. And Pettersson kind of does a bit of a reverse hit, and he jumps a little bit, but they called him for charging. The guy with the puck got charging. Never seen that before. The guy hit him with his back. Pettersson hit him directly with his own numbers. Never seen that get charging.
And Pettersson was I still.
I don't.
Didn't have a couple strides to build up for a charge.
Yeah, he hit him with his own numbers with the puck, and he was standing still. How are any of these even remotely possible? Let alone all combined to form a charging penalty. Like, if they wanted to call him for something else, like if you wanted to call him for something related to him jumping into the hit, I guess fine. But I don't know, maybe just the way it was called charging made it extra goofy when I already thought it wasn't a penalty-worthy play.
Yeah, I didn't like that call. I know people are trying to pull out the thing of like, there's a rule of like, if a player's coming to hit you and you jump when they're coming, it's a penalty. I don't fully buy that. Especially to call it charging. I feel like we see all kinds of
guys jump.
Especially to call it charging is just nuts. Thankfully, Vancouver is able to kill off that penalty. because like if the Oilers scored on
They
that and
did
that ended up being the
ruin the
eventual
rest of
game
their power
winner,
play because that
yeah,
happened while they had about a minute left on their own power play. So they were able
yeah,
to kill
like
off the minute worth of power play Edmonton got at the end, as well as they didn't score on theirs.
yeah, but
The
I'm
four
saying
on
like
four, I guess.
if Edmonton scored on that minute power play and that ended up being like the difference maker,
that would
like
have been
man,
bad.
what a stain on this series it would have been.
Yeah,
Like
luckily
that would have
people are
been
going
the
to forget
talking
about
point
this,
forever.
but
Yeah,
it would have been a core memory unlocked for just another example of bad reffing. So luckily it was not that.
yeah, and again, one of those games that it kind of felt like it was destined for overtime the way it was going, and
we
you know,
sure both thought
again,
so.
you throw pucks on net. Pedersen goes to if Pedersen scored off it, it would have been called back because he kicked it in the direction, but he
I
kicked it
wondered
off
if it
the
would get called
post.
back if that did go in.
I think it would have. It
I
was a pretty distinct kick. I
but
felt like.
but he angled his foot first, but then he did do a bit of a kicking motion, but it was backwards.
No, I still
I've
think it would have. They would have
he
called
moved his
it.
foot backwards. I've never seen them review a play where a guy kicks it backwards. So I don't know if the refs look. No matter what they look like, how blatant or unblatant it is, I always just call it a 50-50 with kicking because the refs seem to have no
Usually,
more
yeah,
clue than I do. But
yeah.
I did have that thought of myself of like, I wonder what they'd call it. Luckily, it bounced off the post. Miller bats it in.
And
Great win for the Canucks.
Vancouver wins it. Yeah, this is the one series that. I mean, there's only 2 other series left. All 3-2, but this is the one that still feels like this one can go either way.
Yeah,
Like I'm still pretty certain
100%.
that I think Florida does
This one
close
looks
it
a
out.
lot closer than the other
Dallas
2
does.
series, considering
Yeah.
they're all 3-2. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Like this is the one that like Vancouver could easily, go out there and win game 6 and end it. They could lose game 6 and then go back home for game 7 and win it, or Edmonton could easily just win 6 and 7.
Yeah, if
And
McDavid puts up
end
5
it.
points and then 6 points, what are you going to do?
Yeah,
Like,
exactly right.
like he just could. We've seen him do it before. Like it's not out of the realm of possibility. One
Yeah.
thing that's looking real nice for the Vancouver Canucks is it sounds like there's been a lot of positive progress from Thatcher Demko. I'm actually just noticing here on the page I'm looking at that has a bunch of Canucks and Oilers stats. His estimated return is May 18th, which is their next game. So they're thinking he might come back for that, according to ESPN's little stat thing here. But
I'd be curious how they handle that.
I doubt he comes back for next game, but I was seeing a bunch of things circulating. Rick Tocchet was saying that over the past 72 hours, Thatcher Demko has made a lot of significant progress. So he did say that he's doing better. If it goes to game 7, there's a really good chance I think we see him. I don't know if they need to play him in game 6, though.
That's kind of what I'm thinking.
It's kind of a 50-50 call because Seelovs has been fine for them.
Yeah.
He's been
has
good
hurt
even.
them.
He's been very actively good for them, actually. So I
Yeah.
don't think you need to force Demko back unless you're in that must-win game.
Which is kind of what I think they're gonna do. Like it makes sense. Like Seelovs has got you to where you're at. He hasn't hurt you one bit. So it makes no sense to go away from him for game 6. But then it's like, if you go to game 7, where game 7, anything can happen, it makes more sense to probably go with Demko because he's the guy that could very easily steal you a game against the Oilers in a game 7.
Yeah.
Despite even maybe potentially still being a little banged up. It's going to be very interesting to see how that goes for the Canucks. And if the Canucks win game 6, well, then you get a little extra time that you can let Demko rest before probably starting him then in the West Finals.
Yeah. That's about all I got to speak on for this one. We could do the scoring and the goalie leaders, but they're incredibly similar to last time. I mean,
I think we
like
almost
you
just
said,
leave them until the second round is done.
Yeah, like
basically.
one game has been played for every team except for the Canucks and Oilers who played 2, but like it's more of the same.
One that the next episode we do, all series will I'm pretty sure we'll be like done or pretty much done.
Yeah.
Like maybe we might have like one or I think yeah, we might have like 1 or 2 game 7s left if it goes that far, but oh no, that'll be it. Next episode we do like all round 2 will for sure be done,
Perfect. We'll do it
so
then.
that works out well. One actually I did have one last thing that I wanted to
Go
get your
for it.
opinion on. Because it just kind of came out. It sounds like it came out a couple of days ago, but I just found out today. Coming out of Winnipeg, Nikolai Ehlers has officially been made available for trade this offseason. I just
When you
want to get
say
your thoughts on that.
officially made, do you mean they actually announced they're shopping him, or is this like some rumors?
No, they've let teams know that he's they're not actively looking to trade him, but he is
But he's
available
available.
should the
Yeah.
right offer come in.
I did
Yeah.
see that as well earlier today as well, but I saw it from a bit of one of those not as trustworthy news sites. So I just wanted to make sure there was
Yeah.
good source behind it. But
Yeah, like it's not like they're going to
I
teams and being like, "Hey, here's our offer. Do you want him?" It's like, make us a good enough offer that we can't refuse, and he's yours.
and this is very interesting to me because Ehlers is a fantastic player that has never been utilized properly by the Jets. But they just fired their head coach, or rather, he retired.
Yeah, retired.
So, if next season they might utilize him properly, he might get way more ice time. He might be playing in better positions. So I don't know, because if their coach didn't retire and you asked me, I would say yes, they should absolutely move him. They don't see in him the talent he has, and other teams will pay out the ass for it. But if a new coach could use that guy, let him use that guy. So it's very interesting that he's been underutilized for so long by their coach, and then finally you know he's not in charge anymore, and now they're looking to move him. So it's a bit weird, but if they think they can get better depth, if they can reallocate that money elsewhere, you know what? Their GM's made some great moves in the past 2 years. So if he wants to try and make another one, if I'm a Jets fan, I definitely trust him to get the team where they need to be.
Yeah, I think that's a perfect way of putting it. Yeah, I just wanted to get your thoughts on that because it's one of the interesting ones where it's kind of anything could happen revolving a guy like that. Obviously, there's going to be very high demand for him.
And there was I just know there was stretches of time where he was playing on the third line, and it was like Nick Ehlers is not a third line guy. You do not have that kind of top end talent to be shoving him on the third. So yeah, he's just always seemed to be underutilized there, whether it's the GM, the coach, whoever who didn't like him, or they just didn't see it in him. But everyone else sees it while he's playing on that third line. So if they can get the haul that they want for Ehlers, then yeah, that could really bolster the Jets back up and give them a good chance at running it back next year, because it's very disappointing for them to go out 4-1. In the first round this year. They had such a great year. They looked so dominant, and yeah, I'm hoping they can come back next year. They're a fun team to cheer for a little bit. One of those teams. It's especially easier as a Lightning fan. They're over in the Western Conference, but they don't exactly have a ton of easily hated guys. So they're very easy team to like.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
Yeah. Do you have any inklings on where you think he'll go? I don't know if are there any rumors of where he's going, or
not really. The only one that and I mean this was a couple years ago. The only team that I've ever even heard of kind of having a connection to him is the New York Islanders. I know they were very interested a couple years ago when they were trying to find someone to put on that top line with Barzell. and Ehlers kind of looked like he would be the perfect guy to put alongside Barzal. But then they did grab Bo Horvat. So I'm not. I mean, maybe they're still looking. Maybe they could make a move for him and kind of add him to that top line with Horvat and Barzal. But I'm not entirely sure now if they're going to do that because they have Horvat. But that really is the only team that I've heard before that was kind of interested in him back when he wasn't kind of really available. But
Does he
obviously
play?
there's going to be teams lining up at the door to try and get him. All of these contending teams.
Yeah. Does he play right or left wing, or does he play
Left wing.
both? Okay.
Usually left wing because he's left-handed.
Right. I have no reason to really believe it. I just something about Nick Ehlers just screams he's gonna get picked up by the Bruins. Something about him, I could just see that happening. But I really I don't have a ton to base that off of.
It's again, it's one of those things where it's so tough to say because it's so hard to gauge what Ehlers is really worth. Because again, I think he's a fantastic player, but he does have that history of not being able to stay healthy for an entire season, which for some teams that kind of knocks down the price of what they feel like he's worth. So, I guess it really depends on if we hear
Vegas, it knocks the price up.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, so I mean, it'll be interesting to see if he does get moved, even because I'm not entirely sure he will. Because again, the Jets need the right offer to come in. It's not like they're actively throwing his name in offers to other teams. They're letting other teams come to them. So maybe we see a move at the draft. Maybe Winnipeg's looking to get a first round pick back in the mix that they trade away to Montreal. So maybe if there's a team that has their first round pick and there's a player that Winnipeg wants, maybe that's involved as part of a deal to get him. We'll kind of have to wait and see how that goes.
Yeah, it'll be interesting for sure. It's always interesting when teams are willing to trade, some of their better players, some top guys, some, borderline all-star talent in the league.
Oh yeah, like when you hear names like this, it always kind of gets you excited leading up to the draft and free agency to kind of see okay, here's a guy that now, not only excited for the draft and whatnot, but you're also excited to see some players get moved around when you got a big name player like that. That could get moved at any moment. It always kind of gets you on the edge of your seat, wondering if or when it's gonna happen here. But I think that wraps up everything we got, right?
That's all I got.
Awesome. Well, this will wrap up yet another episode for the second time this week of the Stick 'em Up podcast. As always, we are coming out right now twice a week as we are going through the playoffs. Lots of hockey action going on, and we want to make sure we keep up to date with you guys on everything going on around the league. As always, feel free to throw us a follow on any of our socials. We are on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter at SEU Hockey. Come throw us a follow. Come say hi. Come talk about the playoffs. If you have a prediction on where Ehlers is going or what he may be worth, feel free to let us know, and we will definitely talk about it on here. I know we do have some stuff planned in the future to talk about some hypothetical Mitch Marner trades. And if you guys got some for Marner or Ehlers, feel free to let us know, and we will definitely bring those up on here and talk about those.
Yeah. It's a lot of fun to try and speculate where guys are going to go, but at the end of the day, sometimes they go to the obvious one, and sometimes just out of nowhere something happens. So
sometimes you got fucking Vegas grabbing Hannafin and Hurdle at the deadline out of nowhere.
I was gonna say it, but I already brought up the Sharks once.
Yeah, I'll do it. I'll take one. I'll take another bullet. But yeah, that does wrap up everything we got for this episode. Thank you, everybody, once again for tuning in, and we will see you guys next week.